God. Alright. I don't know what to say about this next episode. I mean, it's not bad, but it's just not really that interesting. But we'll talk about it when we get through it. This is Dragon Dropped. So this episode begins in the middle of the night as Rarity tries to talk to Spike to invite him over to have a trip to the Gen Cave, but Spike is a little bit preoccupied with a letter. Yeah, kind of the feeling I get when I'm in the zone with something. But essentially, Spike tries to tiptoe around the subject matter, in that basically he's in a rush to try to go to the post office to meet up with somebody, and Rarity thinks that she's upset him for some reason.
Jeffy? Right, sounds good. Well, I need to get to the post office before noon. All right, very funny. Obviously, you get the bigger basket, and I should...
So inside the Gen Cave, Rarity mumbles as to why exactly Spike has basically decided to ditch her when normally in the past he has always been head over heels to help her out, and essentially vents all of his questioning to Applejack.
Honestly, Applejack, if you're going to fill in, you could make an attempt to hold the basket the way Spike would. And how's that? Well, for one thing, Spike knows how to keep things quiet so as not to waken the bats.
Yeah, because we know how well that went last time when it happened in Gauntlet of Fire.
And he usually pulls me close so no gem ever touches the ground. Rarity, Spike's been following you closely since he got to Pony. And in case you hadn't noticed, I am Spike!
Well, that was basically a mistake, where Applejack does essentially bring up a point where essentially Spike has been following her around, well, since the show began. So after Applejack and Rarity are driven out of the cave, Rarity goes over to Twilight's castle to try to look for Spike, but then essentially over-dramatizes her problems to her.
Besides my name? Well, that is the question. What's Spike? Oh, well, Spike isn't here. I think he's at the post office. Oh, Jen! What is it with Spike in the post office? What's going on? Spike declined my invitation to the Gem Cave, and I intend to find out why. That doesn't sound like Spike. Did you two have some sort of fight? A fight? Goodness, Twilight, what did it put you fight about? I've had arguments with friends before, and they can put a real strain on friendship.
Yeah, no shit, Twilight. Given the fight that you had with Pinky in the movie, the many fights that you've seen with your friends over the course of the show, so yeah, no kidding. So essentially, Rarity heads over to the post office where, believe it or not, we see the return of Gabby, the Griffin that is the honorary member of the Cutie Mark Crusaders in The Fault in Our Cutie Mark back in Season 6. I am so happy to see this little ball of joy again.
Wow! That's a big crate of stuff you're mailing. I'm still saving it. Then why are you pushing it into the post office? Oh, I didn't realize prisoners worked at the portable post office. Oh, no, I don't work here exactly. I'm the official mail carrier of Gryffindor.
And she also then mentioned, I think this is kind of one of the things I wish the episode could have also added a little bit of dialogue just to bring in continuity back to The Fault in Our Cutie Mark, considering that on Gabby's delivery bag she has the honorary Cutie Mark Crusaders insignia on her bag. She should have said something like, oh, I'm Gabby. I'm your sister. I heard much from your sister. And then Rarity could be like, oh, you're the Griffin that Sweetie Belle helped out. Like, I wish the episode could have brought that bit of dialogue, essentially. But, so, anyways, Rarity talks to Gabby and essentially says the stuff that she basically pushed all the way to the post office is for Spike. as we did get a little bit of the dramatization. And one of the good things I will give this episode is that Tabitha St. Germain is on point in this episode of how humorous and overdramatic she makes things. So I will give it for that. Just listen. Not find that humorous. This whole thing just cracks me up. It's even more humorous when Spike actually comes into the post office and Rarity has to explain in the whole thing to Spike.
I'm working on my apology to you, Spike. I don't know how I could be more genuine. I mean, Spike! Oh, Spike, I am so sorry. Please, forgive me. You have to forgive me. I don't know what I did or why you're mad at me. Please, say you forgive me. Please.
Like I said, she is on point in this episode. It really just cracks me up. But essentially, Spike says that she's not really upset in any way, shape, or form.
But I don't understand. If you're not upset with me, why in a question would you refuse to go to the gym cave? As I understand.
So it turns out that the reason why Spike has been going to the post office is that essentially he is spending time with Gabby. And Rarity is not too keen about that. But after the commercial break, Spike and Gabby kind of explained how they've become really kind of like this. Some people have kind of like shipped them kind of together, given that throughout the episode, from what we've seen of them, they do have legitimate chemistry with one another. And on top of that, it's already the shipping through the roof. Because essentially, the Rarity Spike shippers, I think, probably felt like their soul was just dying after seeing this episode. But anyways, I'll let Spike and Gabby kind of explain how they've become, like, really, really close friends now.
Sort of pen pals. Yeah! There was this whole thing where I pretended to get Juliet, this person don't get Juliet, so Princess Twilight had twice and a bunch of letters off to Rivendell about the first person ever to get a cutie water, which they really didn't have. Gabby wrote back, explaining things, and after that we just started writing back and forth. Turns out we have a lot in common. We're called pen pal cultures that don't have the friendliest reputation. And we're both in the message sending business. I sure wish I could send strolls with my friends.
So, yeah, like I said, in just this few moments, we can kind of see how Spike and Gabby have really kind of a strong chemistry with one another and how much they really bond, and you can see legitimate friendship out of them, and possibly more. And Rarity is not too pleased about it, as she tries to be happy about it, but she's not.
Having a friend in town is a rare treat. So, since you're busy today, maybe we can do something tomorrow. Fabric shopping? I know how you love to pick out the colors. Actually, now that there's a Griffin at Twilight School, Gabby's here all the time. Grandpa Ruff asked for a lot of updates about how Gallus is doing. Speaking of which, I better get going. No play with you. Well, alright, you two fly along. I'm sure Spike and I can do something some other.
Well, first of all, as far as the Grandpa Gruff comment, I'm sure he's probably happy to know that Gallus is doing a kick-ass job right now. But I think you kind of know at this point where this episode is going to lead, and that essentially is that basically Rarity is getting jealous over the fact that basically Spike is now spending more time with Gabby than he is with her. And believe me, being friends long distance is definitely a hard thing to kind of handle, so it is kind of an absolute mood to me. But at the same time, you kind of know where this episode's going to go. And it's not really much like this episode really does anything interesting with this whole thing, because it's just really not that endearing. I mean, it is at first, but it basically just becomes a slog because you kind of know where things are going to lead. Oh, and by the way, during the next scene where essentially Rarity has essentially hijacked Rainbow Jazz to help her out with finding fabrics, there is an animation error where basically Twilight Sparkle's cutie mark is on Rarity, so oops.
Too bad Spike's not here. I bet he could help you narrow it down.
Yeah, and we see basically Rarity watching Gabby and Spike spending time with each other and just essentially getting jealous over the whole thing. And then essentially we get a montage of basically Rarity reminiscing all the times that Spike was helping her out ever since he came to Ponyville. But it probably makes you wonder how long this has been going on, considering that the flashbacks they show, basically Spike has basically been helping her out while he still had wings. And considering how long that he has been around Ponyville, I would like to believe that these flashbacks would be before he got his wings. And it is all nothing but filler. It's not really anything engaging or thrilling, and it's just basically what we already know is going to happen, and it's just essentially really, 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 really fucking boring.
Is there a video telling you how to make a goddamn Christmas special? Because that's the one you goddamn need.
I feel like that describes this episode because... Now, this is the thing. Throughout the entirety of the show, I'd normally say that predictability is not a bad thing. It is not the kiss of death. If it's episodes like May the Best Pet Win or The Last Roundup, if the adventure is intriguing, then I can look past the predictability. This episode essentially does really nothing with it, and essentially is essentially just filler. So while Rarity continues to basically vent her sadness and frustration to now Fluttershy, as she's basically too distracted by work and is too distracted with Spike, and Fluttershy suggests something to her.
Oh, darling, it's no use. Thank you for trying. I'm just accustomed to the help of a small, highly attentive dragon. Maybe you should let Spike know how grateful you are for everything he's done for you.
And this gives Rarity a questionable idea. That would have been the more realistic reaction, but no, Spike doesn't really question why Rarity is in his room at the ass crack of dawn. But essentially, she basically brings Spike along to eventually take a day trip over to a Crystal Gorge, and essentially trying to ignore Gabby.
I think I will. I got your scroll. The great gem crevasse sounds a lot better than doing my rounds. Wow.
But even after this initial trip, we see that Gabby and Spike still continue to bond, and Rarity is still confused.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Rarity. It was a great day. Okay, start from the beginning, because I want to hear everything. Well, to get to the crevasse, you have to climb across a rope bridge because the air's too thin to fly. That is amazing. Whoa!
So they bump into Rarity, and essentially, Spike is falling for the same thing, where Rarity essentially bribes Spike in going to basically a Power Ponies convention, but also this is causing him to take time away from Gabby.
Oof, my quad's sore. Indeed. I had no idea how much walking there is at a Power Pony convention.
Hey, there's a lot of walking in a convention. It's been a long time since I did the BronyCon, but there was only a handful of things that I really enjoyed, and I knew when to get my steps in, essentially, so I know the feeling. So essentially now, Rarity is basically trying to do everything in her power to essentially get Spike to spend time with her, more so than with Gabby, as she shows up the next morning to try to have Spike teach her how to play ogres and oubliettes. And Gabby basically comes flying in, basically getting the scroll, and we're at the point of the episode where we know things are going to lead. So we're essentially going to fast forward to the point where Gabby catches Spike teaching Rarity ogres and oubliettes, and we get the classic second act transition to the third act misunderstanding of Gabby thinking that Spike lied to her and essentially tried to cheat on her, and Rarity doesn't bat an eye. I want to be fair to this episode, but it's just, this episode gives me nothing to work with because it gives you exactly what you think is going to happen in an episode like this. I will give Spike this. Now, obviously, if you've seen a lot of my older reviews from the first 2-3 seasons from like 8-10 years ago, you know I was not the biggest fan of Spike, and his overly obsession crush on Rarity like drove me nuts and like blew me through the roof. This is the thing. I was 15 when I started doing these reviews. I'm 26 now, so I think I've now gotten past the point of all, the negativity with Spike. Especially, as I said, with the character development he started to get in Season 4, where I started to come around on him. So, and I will give Spike this, that he's basically becoming more mature and is really being upset over the fact that he ruined his friendship with Gabby and also spending time with Rarity. And Rarity does not bat an eye at the fact that essentially she was the one that caused this entire thing to happen, as we then get yet another montage of Spike spending time with Rarity, but because he is completely depressed about the whole thing with the ruining friendship of Gabby, he is a completely depressed, and Rarity doesn't think that she's done fucked up. So then after that, they return to Twilight's castle where Spike basically goes off depressed, as Rarity kind of fills in Twilight on what exactly went down as to why Spike is being depressed.
Is Gabby not wanting to spend time with him anymore? What? I thought the two of them were hanging out all the time. They were! Honestly, it took everything I had to convince him to spend any time with me at all. But between Crystal Gem crevasses, Power Pony conventions, and a marathon game of O&O, I managed to get some time in.
I mean, what am I supposed to say to that? Rarity does not realize of how underhanded all that was just so she can ruin the friendship that Spike was building with Gabby, and that potentially Gabby thought that he was cheating on her. So I don't know about you, but that seems a little underhanded to me, as Twilight feels the same thing, as basically with issues that I have with episodes like... Don't make me say it. Please don't make me say it, but... This next scene, basically Twilight telling Rarity what the problem was, is exactly what happens when telling the moral that was exactly like in Bridal Gossip, The Mysterious Ne'er-Do-Well, and Spike at Your Service, where the characters have to be told the moral. The cardinal sin of why that is a massive issue in this show is that when someone has to tell one of the characters the lesson, they're not learning.
It sounds like you made sure he didn't have any time to spend with Gabby at all. What? I certainly did not. Well, I suppose I may have monopolized him a teeny bit. I've just grown so used to having Spikey wacky around. I wasn't prepared for how much I'd miss him when he wasn't. Friendships change, but just because Spike made a new friend doesn't mean he stops being yours.
And once again, admittedly, this is another really good lesson where, like, yes, even if you see somebody make a new friend, that doesn't mean you have to be jealous of that person. That doesn't mean they're going to stop being your friend if they meet somebody new, because you can still love and respect that person. So this is another one of those episodes where it has a really good moral, but as I said, while it's not as horrendous as the episodes I mentioned, if someone has to tell someone the lesson, they're not learning.
I know, but now I have to share him. Which I suppose I'll have to get used to.
So essentially, Rarity goes over to essentially try to talk to Gabby, and we get another thing yet again where Rarity essentially apologizes to both Spike and Gabby.
I actually owe you an apology too. You apologize a lot. I wish I didn't mean it, but But the more time you two spent together, the more I missed my time with Spike, and the more I used every means at my disposal to get it back. I am truly sorry.
You really miss spending time with me?
Oh, of course. I have to say, after not hanging out with you, I understand why. You're kind of awesome. And I know what it's like to miss that now, too.
So, do you think maybe we could start hanging out again?
Absolutely.
So the friendship is remade as essentially while Rarity's a little more accepting of it, as now she's dragging Pinky to essentially do her cape, ape, shirts, and shorts with her, but Spike is able to make time and come down and join her.
Spike! How wonderful to see you.
Yeah, Gabby and I had a great day. But I'll always still want my baby.
Oh, so that's how it works.
I don't know if she means basically the gem cresting or Spike basically getting with two girls. And the bats come in, and that's the end of the episode. And that's Dragon Dropped. And what am I supposed to say? I will give this episode it's not the worst episode that I've watched, but it is pretty boring and uninteresting. Like I said, I will give this episode this. It does have a really good moral that, yes, you should learn to try to make time with your friends, and especially when a friend has to meet a new friend that is very long distance, it could seem like you're basically, it feels like, you're kind of drifting apart, but you have to learn to try to spread out time with your friends. So I get where the episode is going with. The problem is that the episode is boring. I mean, it's not downright horrendous or awful or anything like that. I think probably just the issue that I have with it is just the fact that this episode does nothing new with it. With this type of moral. You kind of pin down exactly what's going to happen, and it's just basically just a lot of filler, and the conflict is really not all that interesting. And what sucks is that another positive is I'll give this episode is that Tabitha St. Germain was on point with her over-dramatization of a couple of things, and Gabby and Spike had really good chemistry, and on top of that, it was great to see how far Spike has come compared to what he was like in Season 1, where he overly obsessed about Rarity almost every second they were on screen together, whereas in this episode proved of how much mature he's become, where he's able to make other friends and not be so overly obsessive with Rarity. But this episode gives me nothing to work with, and it is so goddamn boring. Now, with that being said, it's not frustrating because some of the positive elements do balance out some of the things. But essentially, this is another one of those episodes where because you know what's going to happen, you have to skip over a lot of the filler just to get to the part where you know what's going to happen, and it ends up happening exactly the way you think it does. Now, like I said, it's not the worst episode I've ever watched, because trust me, I already have sat through a couple of those. But this episode doesn't do anything new, and it's not really all that interesting. So, honestly, I think for me, Dragon Dropped is probably a C-. And it only escapes being worse because of the positives that I have mentioned, with Rarity's over-dramatization being funny, Gabby and Spike's cute relationship, and Spike's character development. And those are three major things that made me want to watch the episode. But then as soon as we got past that, the episode just got needlessly boring and uninteresting. Now, like I said, still not the worst episode of the season, but it's not really one I can look forward to watching, which sucks, because this episode brought back Gabby in like a full speaking role, and yes, while she did show up in The Last Crusade, the fact that she got sandbagged into a classic jealousy story is not really something that I wanted the show to do. So yeah, final rankings for Dragon Dropped is a C-. Alright, so next time, hopefully we'll get an episode that is at least a little more interesting and at least can give me something to work with. So next time we are going to be looking at A Horseshoeing. See you guys next time.